Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Loudwire podcast. This is Graham.
This is Joe.
And we've got Kiss's Paul Stanley on the podcast.
The Star Child.
Kind of unbelievable, no joking. We actually have Paul Stanley. We actually sat in a room with Paul Stanley, gave him a mic, and he talked into it for this podcast.
And answered our questions.
No, pretty crazy, right? Chris Jericho's not the only one who can get him on the podcast.
He's going to put you on the list just for saying that.
But first, obviously it's been a very tough week for a lot of people. Chester Bennington from Linkin Park passing away. Yeah, I haven't seen so much, I guess, real sadness from somebody passing away in a long time. Even Chris Cornell. I mean, Chris Cornell was a real heartbreaker, and this one
we were
just adds
still
on
writing
to it.
about Chris Cornell tributes when this happened, and that happened over a month ago. And the outpouring for Chris Cornell is something like I haven't seen before. But for some reason, it just feels even different for Chester. I can't really put my finger on what it is. I don't know if it's just because he was 10 years younger than Cornell.
That's probably part of it. And also because Linkin Park just had universal appeal. They had a universal appeal that, Soundgarden kind of had maybe in the early 90s. But
Yeah, like everybody knows Spoon Man, but
yeah, but Linkin Park were just a worldwide phenomenon for so many years. I mean, the popularity pretty much surpassed any band of their era. Regardless of what you thought of them, their popularity was insane.
they had a Diamond album with Hybrid Theory, which that might be the only Diamond album with screaming on it.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, back in 2000, 2001, they were the band to listen to.
I remember I was in like 6th or 7th grade when Hybrid Theory came out, and that's all I would listen to was that album on repeat and just play video games for 4 or 5 hours and just nothing but that album. And like Chester was, bullied and everything as a child in high school. Wasn't very popular. Wasn't one of the cool kids. And when Hybrid Theory came out, if you weren't listening to that album, you weren't one of the cool kids. So Chester Bennington made everyone the cool kid in high school just by virtue of being a Linkin Park fan.
It was weird because Linkin Park was sort of the band that the cool kids listened to, and then the weirdos listened to, and then the nerds listened to. Like everybody
listened to Linkin Park.
Yeah, there wasn't really a social class high school divide when it came to Linkin Park. It's just like everybody seemed to listen to them, and
Puberty and Hybrid Theory. That's
for us, there. Once life started getting complicated, there's Linkin Park to be like, yep, things get complicated. What really disappoints me is just the ugliness that's come out of this from a lot of people online. There's always going to be the internet trolls and the people who are searching for attention and try to get a reaction from people. But this one, it just seems uglier for some reason. I mean, we didn't really get this with Chris Cornell.
Yeah, I think it's because Linkin Park were a bit of an easy target for the early fans.
Yeah.
We kind of abandoned them by the time the later albums came out, and then especially with what happened this year. I mean, we went on our own rant about Linkin Park's pop album.
Sure.
But we're just as dejected as any diehard Linkin Park fan here.
Yeah, but to take somebody's life and, also just because Linkin Park were so immensely popular at the same time, when you're that popular, you're going to get a lot of people trying to tear you down. And to see that continuing with his death, it really frustrates me. It really does affect me because my faith in humanity is way down. Could not be lower at this point.
It's like all the greatness that the internet's done to bring people together and make you realize what's going on with other cultures, and we're all the same person. We're all the same human race. And then at the same time, it's just brought this destructive, ugly chaos.
I hate to see people online calling him a coward and calling him selfish because it just shows a fundamental lack of understanding when it comes to the subject of depression and the subject of, whether it be anxiety or trauma or any sort of mental ailment. Because let's not forget that early in his life, Chester Bennington suffered some trauma. He had a rough upbringing. He had depression for his whole life. He struggled with substance abuse,
Sexually abused. No, he was sexually abused. He was molested by an older male. From what I've read, I guess they stopped pursuing it once Jester learned that his abuser was also a victim.
See, that's the thing, is this guy was a victim. He suffered some serious post-traumatic stress disorder from this. And people don't call soldiers cowards, when they end up taking their own life from post-traumatic stress disorder. They don't call them cowards. They don't call them selfish. And fame and money and worldwide love and all that stuff, it doesn't erase the ailment of depression.
Yeah, just because all these good things happen to you doesn't mean that those bad things no longer happened.
No.
You still have to deal with that.
All those things can definitely lead to a happier life and to a more structured life and a better foundation for you.
More fulfilling.
But saying that those things will cure clinical depression is like saying those things will cure diabetes. It's ridiculous. It's just not true. People who've never gone through depression, clinical depression, everyone knows what it's like to be sad. People don't know what depression feels like or what anxiety feels like. That's why people are so afraid to talk about it, because they're afraid of the way that they're going to sound when they explain how they're feeling to people, because it's just a lack of understanding. I was thinking about this not long after Chester passed away, when we got the news, just of how do you explain to people who don't have depression what it's like? I mean, imagine, a lot of people's worst fear is spiders, right? So you can imagine a spider crawling onto your arm. And what do you feel in that moment? Panic, desperation. It's just that horrible feeling that comes up. And what do you do when you get that feeling? You swat the spider away. But the point is that you're not swatting away the spider to get rid of the spider. You're swatting away the spider to get rid of the way you feel when it crawls on your arm. Imagine if you swat away the spider and the feeling remains. You still have that terrible, terrible, horrid, dreadful, panicky feeling in your head. Or what if you look down and there is no spider, but you still feel that feeling? The normal person would look down and go, oh, they'd feel relief because, oh, there's no spider there. I thought there was a spider. They feel that relief. But someone who's got a chemical imbalance or a panic disorder, depression, anxiety, they just don't have that same reaction. Think about the desperation you feel when you see there's a spider on you. The desperation that you feel to get it off you. And what do you do to get it off of you? You flick it off with your hand. Can you imagine any other situation in which someone is terrified of spiders? It's the worst nightmare that they would actually touch a spider other than to get it off them. That's the only way. It's that source of desperation and how horrible that feeling is that they will actually touch a spider. Now, if you will touch a spider to get that feeling out of your head, what else would you do to get that feeling out of your head? Because make no mistake, it feels like that. It comes in waves. It comes and goes. It's that level of terror and stress and confusion. So what else would you do to get rid of that feeling? Would you scream? Would you lash out at someone and hurt somebody? These are all things that people do to get rid of a horrible feeling. You're so angry that you have to lash out at somebody. You're so sad that you have to cry. You're so scared that you have to scream. So what else would you do to get rid of that feeling and your desperation? Would you turn to alcohol or drugs? Would you hurt yourself? The desperation.
And then when none of that works, you have to keep finding other solutions.
Exactly. And treatment for mental illness is still very archaic. It's still not very developed, and there's no definite answer for it. There are some medications that may work. Seeing a therapist may work. There are a lot of things that may work, but there are no definites. There's no guarantees. So when that desperation boils over and you just can't handle that feeling anymore and you feel like there are no answers and you just can't live with it. You know, this is coming from someone, myself, who's dealt with depression and anxiety for 20 years and has just tried to avoid those really bad days. If you suffer from anything like that, your whole existence is based around trying to avoid those horrible, horrible moments. And if you can get around it, then you've succeeded, you know, and everybody sort of develops their own toolkit to get away from those feelings. You know, if you're starting to feel bad, if you feel that horrible feeling coming up, maybe you exercise or you see your friends or you talk to somebody. But those days can still chop your legs out from under you, coming out of nowhere. If you can relate with the spider analogy that I just gave you, maybe you can sort of understand the severity of what some people deal with on a very regular basis with their mental illness, of just how horrible the feeling is. And just think about how long could you live with that horrible feeling if you couldn't swat it away. That's what I have to say about that. So, on a lighter note, we've got Paul Stanley from Kiss, absolute legend, actually sat with us, answered our questions. We talked about a lot of different things. We talked about the potential of a new Kiss album.
The Floyd Mayweather-Conor McGregor fight. That was a bit of a surprise.
That was interesting.
That was not planned.
I didn't expect to actually... When you interview someone as big as Paul Stanley, you expect it to be just question, answer, and not so much discussion.
Especially with the limited time that we had.
And then when you find yourself just in an everyday discussion about the Floyd Mayweather Conor McGregor fight, that's kind of a cool situation, just talking just as two humans, you know, as if you're not in the confines of an interview. So that was cool. So everyone, this is what happened when Paul Stanley sat down with us for the Loudwire podcast. It's time for you to listen and to sit down.
And shout it out loud.
So we're sitting here with Paul Stanley, of course, of Kiss. If you don't know that, don't know why you're listening. And now, Paul, it's been a little while since we've had a new album from Kiss. Gene said he's written a couple songs, but he's hesitant to release the album because he thinks the market's a little poor. Alice Cooper recently said that he wants to make new albums for fans. He doesn't care about the album sales anymore. Where do you stand on that?
If we're going to do an album, it would be because we want to do an album, not because of sales. I think we're living in a time, obviously, now where albums don't sell what they once did. So you're either doing it because you either do it because it's a creative outlet and because it satisfies something in you, or not. If you're doing it purely for sales, then you're probably doing it for the wrong reason. So if we do an album, it's only going to be because it feels right to do it. And, you know, as time has passed, I find it becoming more and more enticing, you know, the idea of doing another album. For me, the only thing we have to make sure is that we don't do Son of Monster or Son of Sonic Boom, you know.
Unless sequels, really.
Yeah, unless we're in a different direction. Not to go to the root of the elder, but unless, again, if we're doing it for ourselves, then if people like it, that's great. But the only way to do an album for me at this point is to do something that I find intriguing. So I'm kind of more into it than I was before, only because once you set the parameters and your expectations. So for me, it really just comes down to, is it going to be exciting creatively?
Now, do you feel any pressure writing a new album? Because who knows, the new album could maybe be the final album that we get from Kiss, and this is going to be the last impression that people get. So do you feel any extra pressure when you're in the writing mode?
You know, the greatest champs got knocked out towards the end. So they're not remembered for that. They're remembered for their history and for what they've done. So I remember going to see Muhammad Ali get outpointed by Leon Spinks. So Manny Pacquiao just lost a boxing match. So I feel no pressure. The story's been written. It's as good as gold. If there's 150 pages that tell the story of victory and a few that tell of stumbles, that's fine with me.
Yeah, speaking of boxing, I'm kind of hoping that Floyd Mayweather gets knocked out by Conor McGregor. I want to see him demolish him. It probably won't happen.
No, I don't think that's going to happen.
I don't think so either. But wouldn't that be a spectacle, though?
Well, I think people are expecting more of a fight than they might get.
I agree with you.
You know, you have to remember Floyd Mayweather is a fighter who knows how to punch and get away.
Yeah.
You know, the idea of them going toe-to-toe, I think, is a fantasy.
I think so. He's probably the greatest defensive boxer of all time.
Totally. So
completely
sometimes
elusive.
people are disappointed by his performance, but he's a technician. So the idea that they're going to go in and see who can knock the other out, I don't think that's in the cards. Although I wouldn't be surprised if somebody winds up on the mat, but it's not going to be, you know, it's not going to be because they were battling it out toe to toe. It's going to be because of that lucky punch or that well-planned punch.
I don't think it's going to be Conor hitting the mat, though. I don't see him knocking Conor down.
Well, you know, we saw Conor in a couple of fights where he...
yeah, against Diaz. I mean, Diaz gave him a rough night.
Yeah,
absolutely.
so and he's never really been in the ring where feet stay planted on the ground.
True.
And you know, and it's purely a boxing performance. So it's one of these guys has done it his whole life, and the other one hasn't. So we'll see what happens. It could be very exciting.
I think the maybe the media buildup and the press conferences is probably the most exciting that it's going to get. So I'm enjoying it now while I can.
Me too.
Yeah, absolutely. So you know, we're talking about the music industry and the decline of record sales and stuff like that. And Kiss, no matter the state of the music industry, has always brought that spectacular live show where you pull no punches, not to talk about boxing again. But has it been more difficult at all to keep bringing that live show to the people with the records not really funding it as much as they used to?
Well, I think that there was a time where touring spurred album sales, and that's not the case anymore. So you stand on your own as a concert act. So people come to see us because they know what to expect. As far as whether it's more difficult, I think years ago I reached a point where I realized that you can't necessarily have more. You can only have different, because you can, instead of going up, you go sideways. You know, you more isn't necessarily better. 150 bombs as opposed to 130. It doesn't really make that much difference. So I think that what we bring as a band, as far as the chemistry, and always giving a show that people are expecting, or more than they expect, that's all we can do. We really have reached a point now where any band with money can do a Kiss show. And there's loads of bands out there doing Kiss shows. I've seen enough bands where I go, gee, that's familiar. And that's okay. You can never be Kiss, though. So you can buy the bombs, and you can buy the lasers, and you can buy the smoke and everything else, but you can't be us. So that's something that we've got a hold on the marketplace.
Yeah, Rammstein is still pretty spectacular, though.
There's a lot of spectacular bands out there, but they're not us, and they don't do what we do. What we do is unique to us.
Sure.
You can have a lot of bands doing Kiss shows, but the only thing missing is Kiss.
Sure.
True. Now, speaking of something different, obviously you've kind of shot down the rumors of Ace Frehley rejoining the band. Would you rule out ever doing a one-off performance or select shows, bringing Ace back on stage? You've worked with them recently. Gene's been collaborating with them. It seems like there's a little more friendly vibe in the air.
I don't think it has anything to do with friendship. I would like to be friends with Ace forever, and although there may have been times where things have been a bit rough or touchy, I prefer and would love to keep our friendship going based on all the great things we've done together. But that doesn't necessarily mean you have to reunite or remarry or whatever it is. You know, you appreciate what you've done together. And sometimes you should realize that it was a certain point in your life and it was a certain time, and it was right on many fronts, whereas it's not the case now. I couldn't be happier with the band as it is today.
Yeah, Tommy's been in the band for quite a while.
Tommy's been in a long time, and before he was in the band, he was still around the band. So, and Eric has been, you know, with us since, well, he played with me in '88. So, I'm happy to do things with Ace. It feels really good, and it was really fun. I think he appreciated it, and I appreciated doing it. And afterwards, when he wanted to do a video, I was all for it. We had a great time. We got time to sit and talk, and there's nothing that can take away what we've done together. Equally, there's nothing that can take away some of the stuff that's happened either. And they both had their time and place. And would I help them out again? And I don't mean that in a way of trying to
not a charitable way.
No, not. Yeah. I mean, you know, would I contribute to something he was doing? Sure, but it doesn't fall into the Kiss realm.
For sure.
Sure. So we heard pretty recently that there's going to be a follow-up to Face the Music. So we're wondering, you know, what more is there to tell? Like, what do you expect to give people with a follow-up to a memoir?
Well, you know, for those that don't know it, I haven't died.
Well,
and,
yes.
You know, and I wrote up until the point that I did, and also there's loads that wasn't in there, and it's you know, life goes on. There's only so many facets of yourself that you can show in those given pages, and it went over so much greater than I expected. You know, it's been translated into, I think, 6 languages, and people really felt that it hit a note or a chord, no pun intended, with them. So, you know, it wasn't the 4th Kiss book, it was the first Paul book. So there's lots more, and maybe a little bit more diverse in its scope.
So is there anything that you really wanted to touch upon in the first book that you just didn't get a chance to?
Not at all. I'm really, really, really pleased, you know, really, really happy with that book. And part of the reason I didn't jump in and do a second was because, maybe not unlike doing another album, there's got to be a reason to do it. Just to do a follow-up, there's no reason unless there's something to accomplish, something to put forward, something to affect people. So I accomplished everything I wanted to with that book, and couldn't be more proud of it and more satisfied. But it's also the foundation for something to come after.
Sure. Right. Well, one thing we really wanted to talk about with you was South Park. Them using the song "Live to Win" in one of their episodes,
solo album,
which was so funny and so well placed. You know, we wanted to know what was the process. Did they tell you that they wanted to use that song?
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. It really it came about very quickly, and very quickly to my surprise, because the album had barely been out.
Yeah.
But anything that can be in South Park is going to be fun.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, whether
you can't lose.
Yeah, whether you
that's why you live to win.
Yeah, there you go. I mean,
Jesus.
whether you're going to be the brunt of something, or you know, everybody needs to lighten up and be able to laugh at themselves and at other people, and South Park's done a great job of that.
So when you saw that episode air, was there just a huge smile on your face?
Of course. Look,
you have a lot of text coming in.
Yeah, you know, when you write songs, the idea that something tangible comes of something intangible. You're creating something from something that never was. You're creating a song, and then to have it played on the radio, played in an application like South Park, it's it's all awesome. My life's awesome. You know, I mean, I can only say that so many times, but I really appreciate all these successes.
Sounds like it.
Great. Last question for you. Of course, we wanted to get your opinion on the Gene wanting to trademark the love sign. A lot of people thought it was the devil horns, but it was actually the
American
love
Sign
sign.
Language for love.
Yes. You know, and that patent is no longer being pursued, but we wanted to get your opinion on that whole situation. Do you think it was maybe overblown? What are your thoughts?
Well, you know, Gene elicits some very strong reactions from people.
Sure.
And what he does for the reasons that only he knows. So I can't really say that I have really any thought about it. It was really something that he wanted to pursue, and the reaction was, you know, how people felt about it. So I don't know why he pulled it, and I don't know why he started it. I really have I haven't asked him.
Okay. I think he's a smart business guy. Of course, whenever these things happen, the media bites, and, you know, to keep yourself in the press, I suppose, is, you know, he's such a smart businessman that I respect the calculated. Hustle. I respect the hustle of keeping yourself in the media. Well, Paul, we want to thank you so much for giving us your time today.
My
Appreciate
pleasure.
it so much.
Loudwire, I wouldn't miss out on that.
Oh, thanks. That's so kind
Paul.
of you. All right, Paul.
Thank you.
Have a great show tonight,
Thanks
man.
so much.
Thanks.
So this one was recorded while we were at Chicago Open Air, and there was only a couple outlets that were actually allowed to interview anybody from KISS. There was 2 for Paul Stanley and 2 for Gene Simmons. So we were in the press tent. We all got wrangled up by people, you know, who are running Chicago Open Air. They've got all their credentialed passes and everything. So they walk us around the backstage area behind the venue where all the buses and everything are, and we go file in, and then before we even get inside the building, somebody stops us.
Yeah, KISS's security is insane.
It's the Fort Knox of rock.
Yes.
So we overcame the first hurdle. Going into the building, there's security posted like every 10 to 15 feet in this long hallway.
Everybody's stopping you, asking what you're doing, who you're with, why you're there, all that different stuff. You've got to answer the same questions again and again.
Even though they probably just heard you answer it to that guy 10 feet away from him.
Billboard China was there. People from Billboard China. And they were walking backstage, and they had
a selfie stick.
Yeah, they had a selfie
video
thing. Yeah. Taking video, and immediately when a security guard saw them just filming their walk into the backstage, like, turn off that video camera, no video, no video.
Yeah,
like,
and we were told there was strictly no video. I think we're all assuming there was no video interview.
Yeah.
But I don't think there was others that were really planning on videoing our way to the backstage.
Yeah, it was nuts. So he scared the crap out of Billboard China. They're like,
Poor guys.
Sorry, and they turned that thing off immediately. So then, finally, we were waiting outside of Paul Stanley's dressing area, which was veiled off. We went in, sat down.
Beautiful room.
It was a really nice room.
Really nice.
It smelled really nice.
Wood, kind of like this wood divider. So if you're in an open room, if you need a little dressing spot that's just got that nice little divider for you. No,
Paul was on the other side of the divider, and as we set up our equipment, we gave the signal, okay, we're ready. Paul comes out, does the interview, and there were star-shaped lamps everywhere as well. That was pretty interesting. I figured, that's definitely no accident.
One thing when you always read his interviews or watch his interviews, he gives these really sharp, calculated answers that just seemed like they were premeditated, like he had the questions ahead of time and prepared his responses to give on camera. And to see that actually unfold as we were asking him, like when I asked him about if he feels any pressure for the new KISS album, and he said immediately, oh, well, the greatest champs got knocked out at the end, but that's not what they're remembered for. Like, as soon as he said that, it was just like, wow.
Yeah, he strikes me as somebody who thinks of these potential interview questions way beforehand and how exactly he would like to answer them, because the whole KISS machine is very well taken care of and very pre-planned and runs very smoothly. So I feel like Paul likes to conduct himself on that same level, in that the things that he says are well thought out beforehand, and he wants to address whatever you bring up to him properly. And
it's kind of like he has his own agenda on how this information is going to get put out there.
And that's very different from, I think, him and Gene, because it seems like Gene kind of spouts off at the mouth a lot. And
see, though, he seems spontaneous, but that's got to be all very, very closely planned and calculated, well mapped out. I think Gene Simmons is so smart of a businessman that sometimes people mistake him for a fool.
Sure, and that's what I said to Paul at the end of that interview, is that, Kiss's way of staying in the press, I respect the hustle. I respect the tactic.
Gene's always said there's no such thing as bad press.
Yeah, yeah, and he treats it as such.
And dude, I thought I was going to get a break from this Floyd Mayweather, Conor McGregor nonsense. So, as you guys know, we were at Chicago Open Air, so we're staying in an Airbnb. And then whenever we weren't at the festival, all Graham was watching was the 4-day press coverage of Conor McGregor and Floyd Mayweather smack talking each other.
This was recorded on day 3 of that press tour, by the way.
I had heard a lot of this completely unwillingly. And I thought I was maybe going to get a 10 to 15 minute reprieve. Like, okay, we're talking to Paul Stanley. There's no way I'm going to wind up hearing anything about this fight. I ask a question about a Kiss album. Boom. Derailed.
Oh, come on. It's so entertaining.
Stupid.
It was awesome.
Stupid. It's so stupid. It's dumber than any of the monologues in wrestling. Sorry, Chris Jericho. I think your bit's great. But and I'm not just saying that because I think he's going to put me on the list.
So if Conor McGregor brought out a list and put Floyd Mayweather on his list saying, Floyd Mayweather, you just made the list, you would dig the fight and the trash talking?
Probably not. I just think the list thing is really funny
that's all Chris.
Because it means like nothing, but it means everything.
Only Chris can pull that off.
Speaking of Chris Jericho, he's hosting the Loudwire Music Awards, which we recently announced. So far, what you guys know is that we've got Hailstorm playing, we've got Body Count, we've got Starset, and if you listen to our last podcast, you know who the hell Power Trip is.
Yes. And we've only just begun. There's so many more surprises that lay in store for you, and we have more performers that we're actually going to announce pretty soon too. And don't forget, Rob Halford is going to be there, and he's going to be performing as well. And it's a 1,500 person room, so you will never be closer to Tony Iommi, metal's living, breathing hand of doom.
Yeah, how about that freaking trophy we've got? We have a trophy of Tony Iommi's hand doing the metal horns, not the Gene Simmons horns, the real horns, with the hand that got the fingers chopped off.
Yep.
There's no more metal trophy. There's no better trophy than that in existence in the history of award shows, past, present, and future.
Absolutely. He actually cast his hand for us, and we made a trophy out of it.
And called it the Hand of Doom.
Yes. And you can watch a short making of the Hand of Doom trophy on our YouTube page. So check that out. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Subscribe to the Loudwire podcast on iTunes. Leave us 5 stars if you'd be so kind, and a nice comment. Go to loudwire.com for all your daily rock and metal news.
Go to loudwireawards.com for all of your information on the Loudwire Music Awards ceremony.
For sure. Follow us on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram. You can follow me, Gramwire, on Twitter.
And you can follow me, Joe, at Ice Nerve Shatter on Instagram. I don't play that Twitter game.
All right, everybody.
I'm on
thanks.
there, but I don't do anything.
Okay. Thanks, everybody, for listening. We'll see you next time. Goodbye.